Welcome to Husky Howls from New Covenant Academy.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Husky Howls. As a reminder, if you are benefiting from our podcasts, please share with others. Now, let's dive into today's topic. The disastrous literary rate in California, despite allocation of astronomical amount of your tax dollar.
Yeah, and it really is quite a topic.
It is. I mean, imagine just for a second handing a teenager a high school diploma, right? Sending them out into the fifth largest economy on Earth.
Right.
And knowing they can't actually read the terms of the contract for their very first apartment or, comprehend a basic medical form.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
Exactly. It sounds like the premise of a dystopian novel. But according to this massive stack of deeply concerning sources we're looking at today, that is the current statistical reality for just a massive portion of students in California.
It is, it's a profound paradox, really. Just to set the stage for you, we are talking about an absolute economic juggernaut here.
Oh, yeah.
California generates trillions in wealth. Yet, if you look at the data, it currently has the lowest adult literacy rate in the entire nation. It's sitting at just 76.9%.
Wow.
Yeah, which means nearly a quarter of adults in the state lack basic reading and writing proficiency. So our mission today is to really pull apart this entire ecosystem of failure. We're going to look at why these massive budget allocations aren't fixing the problem, the intense fight over reading curriculum, and some really stark advice that a few of our sources are giving to parents about private school alternatives.
Yeah, and I'm looking at these budget numbers from the sources specifically. There's this really detailed Korean language educational editorial we reviewed. And my first instinct is that surely, even by sheer accident, this kind of cash injection would lift test scores, like a little bit.
You would think so, yeah.
I mean, we are talking about jaw-dropping state investments. In 2022, they funded a $250 million program just for literacy coaches.
Right, just the coaches.
Yeah. Then they allocated an additional $715 million through 2029.
Unbelievable.
And if that somehow wasn't enough, there is another $462.5 million earmarked for the 2025-2026 budget, specifically targeting early literacy teachers.
It's just massive.
It's like pouring billions of gallons of water into a bucket with no bottom. So, okay, let's unpack this. How is it mathematically possible that this is doing nothing?
Well, because scaling a broken system just scales the failure.
Ah, yeah.
You can buy all the supplemental materials in the world and hire armies of coaches, but if the underlying methodology in the classroom is fundamentally flawed, the results won't change.
That makes sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the problem isn't a lack of resources, but rather how those resources are being utilized in the classroom and, well, in teacher training.
Right. And the data from the sources is just grim. 60% of third graders aren't reading at grade level. And for low-income eighth graders, 82% lack reading proficiency.
Yeah, and that's usually where people say, well, it's a poverty issue.
Exactly. But shockingly, 53% of non-low-income eighth graders are also failing to meet the standard.
Over half.
Over half. So you can't just buy your way out of it by living in a nice zip code.
No, you can't. And that directly stems from the failure of teacher preparation. This brings us to a really damning report from the National Council on Teacher Quality, or the NCTQ.
Oh, yeah, this report was infuriating.
It really is. They evaluated elementary teacher preparation programs across the country. And California's programs are currently in the bottom 12 nationwide.
Just abysmal. Out of 52 programs evaluated in the state, 17 received a flat-out F grade.
An F for teaching teachers how to teach reading.
Yeah. And worse, 37 programs outright refused to be evaluated at all.
Which is, a massive red flag.
Totally. And the report found that 60% of these programs spend less than 2 hours total teaching educators how to instruct English learners.
2 hours.
And 37% spend less than 2 hours on struggling readers. I mean, you spend more time than that watching a movie.
You really do.
How is a young teacher supposed to handle a classroom of 30 kids with that?
They can't. The teachers are essentially being set up to fail by their own universities. And what fills the rest of their training time is this outdated concept in what's known as the reading wars.
Right, the balanced literacy versus phonics debate.
Exactly. The sources show that 80% of districts are still using outdated balanced literacy or whole language curriculums rather than the science of reading.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because it's not that these kids are incapable of learning. It's that they are trapped in a system that literally refuses to give them the foundational tools.
That's spot on. And to understand the tragedy here, we have to look at what Stanford professor Claude Goldenberg outlines in his EdSource piece.
Yeah, his breakdown of the neurology is fascinating.
It really is. He points out that spoken language is natural, right? But reading is entirely artificial. The human brain has no natural reading center.
We have to build it.
Exactly. Decoding and phonics are neurologically essential. Phonics treats English like a code, teaching kids to map sounds to letters.
Right, sounding it out.
But balanced literacy basically tells kids to look at the first letter, look at the picture on the page, and guess the word.
Which is wild. You hit a word without a picture and you're just stuck.
You hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
And we know phonics works. The sources compare California to Mississippi.
Oh, the Mississippi comparison is wild.
Yeah, Mississippi fully embraced science-based phonics literacy policies. And now, the average low-income California fourth grader is a full year behind their peer in Mississippi.
A full year. That is a massive indictment of how California is spending that $1 billion.
It truly is.
So if the science of reading is proven to work, you'd wonder why the state doesn't simply mandate it.
Right, and they've tried.
Yeah, Assembly Bill 1121 attempts to mandate phonics-based curriculums. But a virtually identical bill died last year due to this fierce political and ideological gridlock.
The pushback is intense.
It is. From our sources, there are two main camps resisting this. And to be clear, we are just reporting impartially on what the sources document. First, the California Teachers Association, the union, they want flexibility and autonomy, not a state mandate.
Right, they don't want top-down control.
And second, English learner advocates, specifically CABE, they argue phonics is too narrow and confusing for non-native speakers.
But what's fascinating here is decoding words is a universal skill.
Exactly.
If students can't map sounds to letters, it doesn't matter what language they speak, they simply won't be able to read. The EdSource piece has this incredible story about a Guatemalan first grader named Elena.
Oh, yeah, the one whose mother taught her at home.
Yes, her mother instinctively bypassed the school's methods and taught her syllables and sounds at home, basic phonics. And Elena was reading fluently by the end of the year.
Because it works. And it works at scale, too. The sources point out that Kings Canyon and Bonita unified districts with heavy English learner populations, they use phonics, and their English learners score double or triple the state average.
That's right. And look at Oakland International High School. They use phonics for newly arrived immigrants, taking them from kindergarten-level reading to college readiness.
So if places like Oakland International are proving this works for immigrants, why is there such heavy institutional resistance to standardizing it?
It's a great question, and it's incredibly frustrating for parents. Which brings us to the escape hatch.
Yes. With billions wasted, teachers underprepared, and legislation stalled in partisan gridlock, the sources address the listener very directly about what parents should do right now.
And they do not hold back.
No, they don't. So what does this all mean? Well, according to these sources, parents face a stark reality. Both the Pacific Research Institute report and the Korean language editorial argue that you can't wait for public schools to fix themselves.
PRI points out there is already massive growth in charter schools, over 600,000 students, and homeschooling, which has about 400,000 students.
Because parents are seeing that pulling kids out yields higher achievement, like PRI citing that African-American 8th graders improve their math scores significantly in charters.
Exactly. But the Korean editorial goes even further.
Much further. And again, maintaining absolute neutrality here, we are just conveying the ideas in the source material, but the editorial argues that responsible parents owe it to themselves and to their children to actively seek out high-performing private schools.
They literally call leaving kids in a failing system a dereliction of parental duty.
Yeah, that is heavy. But their point is that private schools have autonomy, they escape the bureaucratic regulations and unions, heavily screen teachers, and use customized literacy diagnostics.
This raises an important question. Who really holds the sovereignty over a child's education? The state or the parent?
That's the core of it.
And the editorial addresses the big elephant in the room, affordability.
Right, because private school isn't cheap.
No, but they point out that a lot of parents are spending a fortune on private tutoring as a Band-Aid for public school failures.
Oh, that's a good point.
They advise that instead of double paying, parents should reallocate those tutoring funds toward private school tuition and actively seek financial aid. They are advising parents to take immediate, direct action.
It's a very urgent message, and it really reframes how you look at the whole system.
It does. And, before we go, I want to leave you with a final, unmentioned thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a democracy relies on an informed electorate, what happens to the civic future of the world's fifth largest economy when an entire generation is graduating high school without the ability to critically comprehend a ballot measure or a news article?
That is a chilling thought. Thanks for listening to this edition of Husky Howls, and we hope you'll come back for another episode in the near future. Again, please share Husky Howls with people you know. They'll be glad, and will be encouraged to produce more episodes like the On you heard today. Have a great rest of your day.